Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all over the world. Dobson 777A here. Well, hello everyone. I'm just going to give you a little preamble here. I want to explain to you some issues that are happening to small business owners, specifically those that are landlords. I've shared with my channel for many years here that I am a small business owner and that I own a lot of single family home rentals. And I've shared some of my experiences that I've had. Well, recently, starting last year, the government decided to get in the middle of everybody's business and how we rent and are actually protecting. Sometimes they have good intent, but at other times, there's people I call professional renters. These people are not the people that you want to have in your house. They're the ones that will force you to go through every single wicket and could, in some ugly cases, you've heard it'll take 6 months or more to get somebody out of your property. And they're not the people we want to protect. These that are professionals, they are not there to try to actually pay rent. They're going to do everything they can to avoid paying rent, and they are going to screw you. Now, fortunately, since I'm going to say something like 1984, I've been renting the vast majority of that time, and I've only had a handful of these. But I want to go through some of the recent things that the government has done, and I'm also going to help you. I'm going to help you with some of these rules. Some may not help you. Others, they may. So I want to start with what happened last year, and then we'll go through each one of these. So I'm going to bring it up on the screen now, each one of these things, so that you can see what I'm talking about. Now, I've been working on something for months now, and an article came up talking about this specifically, so I thought this would be the time to go ahead and discuss this with everyone. This was on Zero Hedge. Mom and pop landlords dying on the vine as unevictable tenants enjoy pandemic protections. And one of the things that's happened, I'm going to go through each one of these. It started with the CARES Act. The CARES Act would not allow any evictions at all, except for the fact, and by the way, that's the other thing, you got to look for applicability in these things. If you did not have a mortgage, the government decided at that time that they could not keep you from evicting. So the vast majority of rentals, small business owners have mortgages, and I've told you before about the leverage. It's incredibly important to have this leverage to have the highest returns, as much as, say, 30% return if you're doing it right. But when the government decides they want to get in the middle of your business, that advantage goes away, because I'm going to tell you right now, if you're holding a mortgage and say, just make up some numbers. Let's say, you get rent and half of your rent goes out for paying taxes, insurance, repairs, that kind of stuff. Then if all of a sudden now you are not able to evict and people stop paying, you're going to get a world of hurt real quick, because you still have to pay your insurance, you still have to pay your taxes, you still have to pay repairs, maintain the thing, like if the roof goes bad, AC, whatever. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's no protections for the landlords. So that gets to be a trouble. Now, you may be able to call your mortgage company and ask for some forgiveness for a couple months and show them paperwork, that kind of thing. But I'm telling you, the cities are not giving any relief right now on if you're not paying your income taxes, and the insurance companies for sure are, I guess you can negotiate some of that. But the government has basically protected the tenants and not the landlords at all. So this started early last year, and I told you a story how I had a tenant who had gotten into drugs and lost his job and had no way to pay, couldn't make up a plan on what he was going to do. And fortunately, because I didn't have a mortgage on this particular property, I was able to go through eviction and got him out there quickly. So that was what they called the CARES Act, and it talked about any of these tenants that had a lease and that kind of thing, but it talked about here it had to have a federally backed mortgage loan or multifamily mortgage loan. And the fact that you did not have those two, that bypassed this. So this is part of the applicability that I was telling you about. Now, funny thing was, I got into a situation with another tenant where they missed rent last year around July. This is right after I'd evicted somebody in February. July, all of a sudden, the tenants bounced a check. So they got hit with fees and took them to court and they told the court, hey, within 10 days, we're going to have our, and I can't remember at the time if it was a tax return or one of these stimulus checks. I think it ended up being a stimulus check. And they said, we'll be able to pay all the arrearage and everything in 10 days. Well, 10 days came and gone, and they're like, we're having troubles, and at that time, you remember, we weren't getting the things in a timely fashion. Some folks, they couldn't even figure out, why things were held up. The IRS was kind of shut down. This was like the first trial run, everything going. So anyways, this drug out. By the time October came, I'm like, all right, what the hell is going on? And finally got them to admit that they did get the money and they spent it on something else. So by then I was like, okay, we got to set up a payment plan or something. I mean, this is a family. I didn't want to do anything, to throw them out if I didn't have to. Well, next, December came and they ended up not making a payment then either and bounced another check. It started falling apart where they were lying to me. And I decided a few weeks ago that I just need to evict them because now I'm starting to get into like $5,000. This is a major issue, and you couldn't trust what they were saying. They had a payment plan that they were going to try to meet, and they failed each time. And then they were getting late almost every month on their payments, which tells me this is a group that's really struggling. So I went and filed for another eviction, and again, a lot of times you're doing this just to get people to pay in case they have some money squirreled away. And you go in front of the court, and if they haven't paid, the court is like usually really good in Florida. They call it in Georgia, magistrate court, and it's a people's court, so it's kind of an informal thing when you go in front of the judge. But I usually have a really nice report that I put together. And so I wrote it up saying, here's all the things that they violated, and I'm trying to evict them for not paying rent and, late fees, all this stuff added all up, and almost $5,000. Well, next, I get a call from the magistrate court and said, no, there's a CDC moratorium on evictions. So let me flip this up. So here's the CDC. This started in September, and it was supposed to end in January. It got extended through March, and then it got extended again through June. I didn't even know anything about this. Well, it turns out they're now, the other thing the CARES Act had ceased, I guess, in June or July last year. And so they decided that they needed to do something else. Now, this one did not have any of the applicability part about mortgages. It's like, it doesn't matter whether you have a mortgage or not. The CDC is saying, we don't want all these people that are potentially going to be homeless showing up. And, it's kind of funny. They're not able to keep people separate in these areas that, people would be staying. And so they don't want the responsibility for people getting COVID or whatever else. So they basically created another rule just by fiat and said, we don't care, you can't evict people. But I dug through this, and I found a thing in applicability. You have to, and I mean, this was a big, long report, had all kinds of cited stuff, but here's the applicability. And it was curious, when you go all the way down here, it says, noting in the order precludes evictions based on tenant, leasee, or resident, violating any other contractual, or nothing in this order precludes evictions based on tenant or leasee or resident, violating any other contractual obligation other than timely payment of rent or similar housing related issues, late payment fees, penalties, interest, or whatever. So the curious thing is, my leases are many pages long, pretty small print, and they're the standard Georgia lease thing that has all kinds of stuff in there. And I'm telling you right now, you need to read your lease top to bottom, find something that you can get these guys on. And it turns out my tenants have had family members living there for months. I discovered this a few days ago. They came in at Christmas, and it was only supposed to be for a couple of weeks. They notified me of that. They didn't do anything in writing, and next you know, I'm over there doing some repairs and realized these people are still there. And then when I realized that I couldn't get them out for this other thing, I went ahead and wrote up another cure notice that essentially says, nope, sorry, you're violation of the lease. We didn't amend the lease to allow, you know, unauthorized visitors to stay at your place, and now I'm working through that. Now, one thing I did do is that I went ahead and contacted an attorney, and I've got an attorney working this because every single thing that is a fee towards this will go against the tenant, and they have ticked me off to no end. They essentially filled out this, let me show you this because this is really interesting. I think it's here. They filled out, I gotta open this up. They filled out this under penalty of perjury that the foregoing are true and correct. They've tried to obtain all government assistance. They have limited earning potential. They're unable to make rent or housing payments due to substantial loss of income. They're doing the best efforts to do partial payments, which I do not allow, and I recommend nobody accept partial payments. And they said if evicted, they will likely become homeless, need to move into a homeless shelter, or need to move into new residence shared by other people. They still have to pay rent or make a housing payment, comply with other obligations, and they understand that fees, penalties, and interest will be required when this happens. And they understand at the end of this temporary halt in evictions, which is now June 30th, they may require payment in full for all payments and in order to avoid eviction. Now it says, even if you provide a declaration to your landlord, the order does not prevent your landlord from seeking a hearing if authorized by state and local and law and ordinance with state and local court procedure to challenge the truthfulness of your declaration. I understand that any false or misleading statements or omissions may result in criminal civil actions for fines, penalties, damages, or imprisonment. Now the funny thing about this, people are stupid with their social media. I went on to the tenant's YouTube, and they did not have it locked down to just friends and family. And they have all of these pictures and videos of them going on vacation and buying furniture for the rental property that they have there and decorating and, you know, getting their vehicle repaired. They had 2 vehicles, and one, the transmission had failed, so they had used their stimulus money to get the transmission fixed. And all of these things they had been doing in lieu of paying rent. So guess what? Screenshot, 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 documented. And I've given all this to my attorney. So I'm going to be going after them for this fraudulent declaration that they've done, as well as, you know, eviction, and also trying to get, you know, all of this money, including now attorney's fees. But this used to be what I called the magistrate court. I used to call it the people's court. I think I mentioned that earlier. But they have made this so complex now. I kind of recommend when you get to where I'm at, I'm doing 14-page reports for the attorney, documenting every single late payment, every single thing that I found. Let him go work this, because they get in to see the judges. You don't necessarily get in to see the judges. So I want you to be aware that's where I'm heading with this one, and I'm going to nail these people to the wall, because they just are lying, and they're professionals. And so now, guess what? This is unbelievable. They actually sent me registered mail this thing that they had signed, and one of the last things I had on here. Let me find this real quick. It lays out perfectly that it says they understand that after they sign, that they're responsible, just like I read before, for rent, back rent, any fees, penalties, and interest. They must follow conditions of the lease. Unless they come to agreement with the landlord, if I fail to make my required payments, I could be evicted when this temporary halt eviction ends. I can still be evicted for reasons other than not paying my rent or making a housing payment. But they have signed this thing saying that all of these things, that they've done everything they can to pay the rent and everything, and yet I've got evidence to the other. So I don't know whether the courts, how sympathetic they're going to be to these tenants' plights, but landlords, we have rights too, folks, and do not sacrifice your rights. Stand up for your rights, because they're actively pursuing taking your rights away from you. And I don't know any other way to say this, but go look at your lease. If you're in this same type of trouble, look at your tenants' stupid social media. Get all of that evidence, because these tenants lie through their teeth. Now, sometimes they're backed against the wall, right? They are in trouble financially, whatever, different reasons. I know more about my tenants that I'm going to be providing to my attorney, their financial situation. And again, they tell you one thing, and there's really another story that's going on. It's not hard to do the research, and I'll tell the full story later. But right now, I don't want to give away everything. But some of these guys are not who you think they are. They put on such a beautiful face, but I'm going to tell you, when you start holding them accountable and the ugly side comes out, that's another part that I'll talk about later. Document all of your conversations. Spend less time on the phone and more with email or texting, so that you can capture that information for the court. I have it all. They are dead to rights on this, and I'll share with you some of my secrets of how I communicate with my tenants for when there's issues, and you will like it. So anyways, that's it for today. I wanted to just share that with you. This is something that we're all going to have to work through. Anybody that's a small business owner, it's a tough world out there. I mean, you miss $5,000 in payments. That's an AC, folks. And normally these properties only have maybe each one $7,000 to $8,000 profit, not counting depreciation and everything. And so when you're behind $5,000, you just about killed the whole profit for the year. And then you throw an AC on there, you're upside down. So don't let these tenants take you down. Some of the stories in that article talked about some of these landlords lost like $100,000 on. I mean, these are some of the higher end properties, I guess. But in any event, you don't want to go that path. You do not want to lose your property. So protect yourself. All right. That's it for this report. I hope everybody's treating you well. I hope you're doing well. Do the best you can. God bless. All right, go potty. We gonna go bye-bye? Are we gonna go bye-bye? Everybody go bye-bye? We gonna go bye-bye? Yeah, all right. You going to get in the car? We're not quite ready. I'm almost ready. You almost ready? Okay.